All right, good to see everybody, and thanks for being here in person. And just before we get started, we certainly are one short today. We're missing Greg Evans, who was at every press conference last year and helped set up and was a very valuable part of our team, who unfortunately passed away 2 weeks ago. So our thoughts and prayers are with Greg and his family. And again, just we're down one, and we certainly miss his presence here. Just reviewing camp. We had a good camp, and now it's time that you take all the off-season weightlifting, conditioning, mat drills, spring football, summer workouts, summer camp, and then you put it in action. And we open up with VMI. Their head coach, Coach Wackenheim, is somebody I know. He's really done a great job there. VMI is not an easy place to win, and they won the Southern Conference in the spring of 2001. They had a winning record a year ago, so they have back-to-back winning seasons. And when he got there, it took a while to build it, and they've been a really improved football team. He's a very experienced coach. He was at UVA. He was the coordinator at Liberty. He was at Rice for about a dozen years, so he's been around good football. They have some changeover on their staff. So even though the head coach is the same and we expect some carryover, they have 5 new assistant coaches, including a new defensive coordinator. Their quarterback is a 3-year starter, Seth Morgan. Threw for over 2,000 yards a year ago and 14 TDs. Raynaud, the tailback, is a good player, 90 carries, close to 500 yards. We really don't know what's going on with Birdie, another tailback. It's weird. He's one of their best players, and he's listed on their roster, but not there too deep. So we're kind of expecting him to play, but a little bit of gamesmanship there maybe. I have no idea what's going on. And then they have an excellent receiver in Thomas, who had 55 catches for over 550 yards a year ago. And they've got a good O-line. The 2 guys that we really like a lot are the guy Jarvis Chandler, who's a big guard for them, 6'5", 270. And then Marshall Gill is another one of those guys that he's in the roster, not the too deep. He started 41 games and is a very good player, and we're not sure what his status is. On defense, their linebacker Snyder was the Defensive Player of the Year in the Southern Conference a year ago. He was a first-team All-American. Their nickel, Malby, M-A-R, I might be pronouncing the name wrong. If I am doing that, I apologize. But another really, really good football player. He's a 4-year starter for him. I believe his name is Mallory. And again, they've got experience at corner. They've got some good D linemen. And I say this every year when we play the FCS games. I think because of my background, I always have a little bit more respect for those guys. And when I was at Fordham and Richmond, we had some pretty good football teams there. So we're certainly going to get their best. But the openers are all about focusing on your team and not turning the ball over and having false starts and beating yourself. And so again, I feel we've had a good camp. Just in terms of Sam Hartman, Sam has not been cleared yet. We feel he's progressing well. But this will be a medical decision and a decision made by doctors of when they feel it's safe and appropriate to him to play. So that has not occurred yet. And again, it's completely a medical and a doctor's decision of when that happens. So I really don't have anything new on that front for you. So this is going to be Mitch's game. And he's had a good couple of weeks of practice, and he's looked good, and he's ready to go. We're very confident with him. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Dave, you've been doing this a while. How do you know when you're ready? Is there a sign? Practices?
I have no idea. I've had openers that, you think your football team is ready and so well prepared, and then you just lay an egg. And other times you go into it and you're concerned about this and that, and you come out and you execute like you've been doing it, it's like your 8th game. So you always expect, a little bit of pregame jitters for the opener. I mean, you have those for every game, but openers are even more pronounced. But we have a veteran football team. We have a lot of players back. As I said before, I think we have 39 of our 85 scholarship players are in their 5th, 6th, or 7th year. So you look at all the accumulated starts and, on the O-line and the D-line and all the different positions, there's a lot less unknowns going into this opener just because of the relative experience of our football team.
Talk about the offensive line briefly. It's 104 starts returning there. How important is it for them and the receivers that you have to kind of make the game a little bit easier for a first game starter like Mitch?
I mean, absolutely. We have a really good offensive line. Blake Whiteheart, played a lot of football for us. Then you look at receiver and Torian Perry and Keyshawn and Taylor Morin, and now you got Donovan back and Justice Ellison. But in our offense, like most offenses, the quarterback has to play well. It's really hard to ever win in football without good quarterback play. Now because of the skill we have, and there's certainly with the Torian and Donovan and Taylor and Key, I don't care who we play. I think we feel good about matchups because of their skill level. But you got to go out and execute, and you got to play, and you got to be on the same page, and you got to communicate. And certainly all those things, no matter who your quarterback is, allows that position to function better. And certainly with a first game starter, that will help him. It's a lot harder to start your first game, right, when you're John Wolford and you're back there and you have all these new people and it's a new offense and a new coaching staff. So I think, Mitch is also in his 3rd year, right? So it's not like he hasn't been in the offense and knows the system. You go back to, John Wolford in 14 and, true freshman, and he had been here for a couple of months. And then even Sam Hartman in 18. So for Mitch's first start, he has a lot more experience under his belt than the other starters we've had in their opening start.
How has he, taken in his first full game week prep as QB1, which has to be a little bit different than what he's went through the last couple of years?
He's a baller now. I mean, he loves football, and the great thing about Mitch is that even when he wasn't one, he always prepared like he was a one. It's really hard to do, and yet he always had that maturity. I mean, every single rep, he's back behind Sam, reading the defense, acting like he's in the rep, making sure the ball's going to where it should go, listening to the coaching points. He is not a passive learner. He's a very focused, intentional. I mean, he's a really good quarterback too, and we are very confident with him. And again, you always want your one, but we've had time to develop depth at the position, and I think Michael Kern's a really good player as well. So we feel good about Mitch, and if Michael gets in there, we feel good about him. And with Sam, we'll just take it game by game and see where it is.
Is it plan to play Michael, or is it just kind of see how it goes?
Well, Mitch is going in as the starter, and we'd love to get Michael in there, but we don't have it predetermined that he's going to go in at a certain time. I mean, we don't plan on rotating. It's Mitch's game, but if something happens, and we certainly hope to play Michael at some point. But like I said, we're not going to say it's the 3rd drive or the 2nd quarter. If it happens naturally in the course of events, he'll go out there.
What are the rules with Ryan? Can he be in the stadium? Can he be in the county? Where can he be with and not be in that club? Are there any rules with that?
I mean, I just think it's shameful that he's not able to play in this game. It really is. I mean, everybody you talk to that is in a leadership position will acknowledge that he did not commit the targeting, and yet he missed 20 minutes of a bowl game, and now he's going to miss a whole game his senior year for a foul he didn't commit. So my assumption is that he can be in the stadium, he just can't be dressed. It's like when you get thrown out for the second half, they don't throw you in the sidelines anymore. But no, I believe he's allowed to be on the sidelines, but I should probably double check that. I mean, I'm just still, it bothers me so much that all the adults in the room couldn't figure this out for a penalty. Everyone, what's the right thing to do? Everyone will acknowledge what the right thing to do is, but nobody will make it happen. And I just think it's not right. I feel bad for Ryan. We'll be fine. Our football team will be fine. I feel good about Jalen Hudson. I feel good about Dylan Hazen. I feel good about our linebacker room. It's not fair to the player that one guy was able to press a button and eliminate 80 minutes of a young man's career on a foul he didn't commit. So it's, again, at every point, I would say, what is the right thing to do? And to me, that's the job of leadership, right? This is the right thing to do. Let's figure out a way to get there. And when you hang on old bureaucratic rules of this and that, it's a failure of leadership. And it's disappointing, but the decision's made, and we'll have him for game 2. And I mean, hopefully he's allowed to be in the stadium and support his teammates. That would even be a greater travesty.
One more thing on Ryan, did the ACC go? Like, did they go to?
They completely supported us.
I didn't know if they.
Yeah, our director of officials, Dennis Hennigan, did not think it was targeting. Our commissioner, Jim Phillips, looked at it. And they sat and reviewed the tape together before they appealed it to the national office. And they've created this rule so those things won't happen. And yet they won't look one game back. And I mean, you say, well, you have to go back and look. I mean, how many people are in this situation? I mean, how many targetings where they were in the second half of games last year that players are going to miss a half a game or a whole game? I mean, I'd be shocked if it's not in single digits. But they just, no, we're not going there, coach. So we fought the fight, we were denied, and we will grudgingly move on.
I certainly don't expect the defensive game plan to be given away. Does the rover position no longer exist, and now we've moved on to a nickel on the depth chart?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of been that way for 2 years. We just kind of listed it as rover, and last year we ended up playing a nickel out there more than a rover anyways. But it's a little bit of a slash position. So we can go a few different ways with that, and when the weeks that we change it, we won't let you know.
Dave alluded to it a little bit before, but that stability of quarterback over the first 8 seasons, how important has that been to the build and then the keeping the program growing incrementally?
Well, you got to give Warren Ruggiero a lot of credit, right? Warren recruits our quarterbacks, coaches our quarterbacks, and I mean, you think about it, we've had, in my opinion, 3 starting quarterbacks and 3 pros. We have one guy that just won a Super Bowl ring, another that's still playing professionally, and I think we have a draft pick here now, and we feel good about the future of the position. So I think Warren's done a great job of evaluating the position, recruiting the position, and like every other position here, it's making sure they're people that fit Wake Forest. So those guys have been, good students, good players, smart, can process the offense, and Warren spends a ton of time on that. So he deserves all the credit for that. I have very little to do with that. I trust Warren completely, and we've worked together 14 years, and even go back to Bowling Green, right? We had stability there too. So we've had, because we have a really good quarterback coach who can evaluate, we've had pretty good quarterback play for 14 straight years, the two of us working together.
Can you talk about Keyshawn Williams and the decision to finish the rest of the slot along with Taylor Warren?
Yeah, those two are both starters. In our mind, we have 2 starting slots, and we'll play those guys equally, and kind of like we'd like to do at tailback. That we feel Taylor is a proven player, Keyshawn is a proven player, and if we can keep those 2 guys healthy, that traditionally for us, when we've had one, that's another position that hasn't stayed healthy. When we had Tabari, he got nicked up a little bit. When we just played Greg there, he got nicked up. Corey got nicked up. Kendall got nicked up a little bit. So we approach that position like tailback. We'd like to have 2 guys that we think are high-level players, and I think we're in really good shape at the position.
Coach, we're back here. Obviously, Sam's not playing. It's Mitch's first start. How involved has Sam been, I guess, in the offense
I mean, he's out at practice, he's in all the meetings, and those two, and I should really say those three, have a great relationship. When quarterbacks compete, that's always tricky, right? There's only one football, and unlike slot or tailback or tight end, that we can play two or three people, and we don't believe in a two quarterback system. And so there's one football, and there's nobody who's a bigger fan or a bigger cheerleader for Sam than Mitch and Michael. And now that the roles are reversed a little bit, Sam has handled it exactly the way you think he would, with a lot of class and a lot of support. And he wants to see Mitch do great. And not because he's just friends with Mitch, but because he knows Mitch's success helps our team's success.
Hey, before camp started, and I might get the numbers wrong, it seems to me you said the goal was to get, I think, 50 to 55 guys over the line to be playable. Was that goal achieved?
No, we're probably at about 51. So the goal is to have about 25 on each side of the ball. And then you'd like to have 5 specialists ready. You'd like to have a kicker, punter, long snapper, and you need a guy that can back up the kicker, punter position, and then you need a good backup long snapper. Without getting into details, you know me, Les, so I put up a goal before camp, and then just 2 days ago I went up to the board that I put up the goal at each position, and I added up all the numbers, and I'd say we're probably at about 51, 52, but that's where the development doesn't stop. So there's players right now, some of them are freshmen, that they aren't ready right now to help us win an ACC game. Our goal is to get them ready by the time we have an ACC game. So freshmen get better, they evolve, they learn the offense, the defense, they start playing special teams. And there's probably a handful of those guys that right now I would say are not over the line. And not for a lack of ability, but just a lack of reps and a lack of experience. And if we can stay healthy, hopefully we get that number up to 55 by the time we hit October.
Spotting out positionally is probably out of the question, right?
Yeah, you can ask, and I cannot answer. I don't want to embarrass, because you do that, you're really calling out and that doesn't help them or help us. So, you could probably sit down, Les, and make a list and figure out who the 51 guys are and who that next group of 6 to 8 are that we need to get 4 or 5 of those guys over the line to help us play winning football. There you go. But the thing is that you can compare you can predict the depth chart, and then you get a depth chart, right? You'll never get to see my board of the actual list. So.
It was announced earlier about Bill Fairclough getting in the Hall of Fame. I know he got hurt in spring. Is that what it took to get him in the Hall of Fame? Or just comment about him? I know he's been a big part of the program for a while.
He's just such a joy to be around. His knowledge of Wake Forest football, his genuine love for our players, our coaches. I mean, he's been retired for a couple years now, and he's still out at practice every day. And there's nobody who loves the Deacs more than Bill Fairclough. So very deserving, and he's special. He really is. He is one of those people that every time you see him or spend time with him, your day got better. He's never in a bad mood, never has a bad day, and it's just unconditional love for the Deacs. He's great.
While I know you have a game obviously 3 days away, I have to ask about your thoughts on all the pro Deacs having such a good preseason.
I'm just really proud of those guys. You start thinking about, I love recruiting rankings, as you know, and I read somewhere, I saw some article that they ranked all the ACC rosters, and just based on recruiting rankings, we're dead last. We have the worst roster, and so many of those people that factor into those rankings are guys like Luke Masterson, who is now doing a great job in the NFL, and Greg Dortch was a 2-star, or maybe he got a 3rd star late. Jasir Taylor. We're just so proud of those guys. Zach Tom, from what I hear, they love him up in Green Bay, which doesn't surprise us at all. We're just so proud of those guys, and our players get so excited for them. The one weekend, I think it was reported like Zach didn't give up any pressures, and the head coach of the Raiders, Josh McDaniels, called out Luke for his effort and his smarts, and good middle linebacker in the special teams. And then Boogie got a sack and stripped a guy, and they recovered for a touchdown. And then Luigi got a sack or recovered a fumble, and then he got a pick. And when our guys see that, they get so excited for him. And there's zero jealousy. It's really neat, the genuine excitement that our players have for their former teammates. And a lot of those guys came in here with very little fanfare. And so the one thing that the recruiting rankings doesn't take into account is that players get better, and they improve, and they grow. And with so many of those players, we stole that extra year of development through redshirting. So we're really proud of them, and I know NFL cuts, I think, are tomorrow, and we're just keeping our fingers crossed and hoping for the best that enough, a lot of our guys stick. But we're super incredibly proud of them. And what I love hearing is when the scouts come back, and they don't just tell you they're good players, but they tell you what they're like in meetings and how they've added to the culture of the locker rooms. I think I take as much pride and joy in that as I do a touchdown pass or an interception or a sack.
Dave, you mentioned on staying short, staying on short.
So you were the one who listened to it, huh?
Do you think you had 3 true freshmen that are going to be, you hope to play for the year? Is that the same amount?
I think right now, and again, these decisions aren't final because every freshman can play 4 games. So if I had to predict right now, I think Damon Claiborne, Wesley Grimes, and Zamari Stevenson, we are looking to play those 3. Now, a lot of it early will be more special teams, and those would be guys that, maybe right now aren't quite ready, but I think with reps and work, they all have the talent and the ability to get there. And then we've made this decision before, and then sometimes, you get 2 weeks into it and they're not ready, and then you can still redshirt them. But right now, those are the 3 guys that we are projecting to play and have them in the 2 and 3 deep and have them involved in special teams. And then obviously, once they play 4 games, and you have to make a final decision as soon as they played the 5th, we're in there.
Any preview on the Maryland game in 2030? Talk about that. I mean, that's kind of, who knows where we'll all be. But.
Exactly. I mean, God willing, right? I think it's a great game. Anytime that we can play somewhere in our time zone in what I call a Wake Forest alumni zone. You go back to the Military Bowl in 2016, and we drew a great crowd there. And then we went up to, in 2019, the Pinstripe Bowl in New York, and we had a great crowd there. And, that whole Eastern Seaboard area, there's a lot of Wake alums. And so anytime I think we can get into the D.C. area and play a game that has some meaning. I mean, Maryland was in the ACC forever, so that's a game that's a traditional game. I still am not, I'm not glad that our rivalry with NC State is going to be discontinued. You just take a game that's been played over 105 years or whatever and end it. I never ever get the logic with those decisions, but those are made at a higher level than I'm at. But to play a game that there's some familiarity rather than, fly in 2 or 3 time zones somewhere and play some team you have nothing in common with, I think those are good non-conference games for us.
A 2-part question that has nothing to do with each other. First,
Then how's it a 2-part? It's really 2 single questions.
just kicking off, and then because I actually on the depth chart, and then secondly, were there any lessons from week 1 games, and did you actually stay on the question? I guess that's actually 3 questions.
Let me process all of those. Okay, first off, Ivan Moore will handle kickoffs, but Zach Murphy also had a really good camp in terms of kickoffs. And one of the things I'm looking at is just maybe letting them both kick off. The problem we've had the last few years, and this is what's called a good problem, is we score so many points, and I hope that problem continues, that our kickoff guy at the end of the year, his leg is tired. And so Zach really did a nice job of kicking off as well. And we might give both those guys an opportunity to kick off and try to keep them fresh and last the season. So that was question one. What was question two again?
Any lessons from watching week 0 games, and did you stay up and watch it?
I did not. I have a hard time enjoying watching those other games because you just, you see North Carolina and Vandy, and then you can't relax, right? You start getting, you want all those teams to not look so good, and they both look good. But no, I didn't watch it. I watched a little bit of Northwestern and Nebraska. Pat Fitzgerald's a good friend of mine, and he's a guy that I talk to from time to time about different issues in his program because I think we have very similar jobs in our league. And, their offense coordinator, Mike Bajakian, went to the same college I did. And those guys are two of the really good guys in college football. So I was really happy for Pat and Northwestern. And it was a great win for them. But I did notice how they managed their 4-minute drive, that they got the ball and it coming out, got it to midfield, and they executed a perfect pooch punt to pin Nebraska inside the 5-yard line, and they made Nebraska use all their timeouts. So that was, I thought their clock management and how they managed that was really well done. And just the radio show comment, Stan, that was more a dig on myself than you. So people like to listen to you. I was kind of taking a dig at myself on that one. So I hope you don't treat me any differently tonight. Yeah, I've questioned that from the get-go. You've survived how many football coaches and basketball coaches? So yeah, so it should be the Stan Cotton Show with guest coach Dave Clawson. It's great, but we have other good kick returners. Keyshawn Williams will be back there. Donovan will be back there. That's an area that I think Damon can help us. Taylor Marin, that's another area that I think Wesley can help us. But the good thing is we have a lot of guys that can do that, but getting Donovan back is great as well. So him and Key will be back there together, and I don't know if there's a good option of who you kick it to. If you see Donovan get excited, that would be the first time I would see it. I tell Donovan all the time, I'd love to have your demeanor, man. I don't worry about Donovan ever dying of a heart attack, or he never gets too excited. I think he's really excited in his way, but Donovan's demeanor and personality is he's always kind of laid back, which is probably good. After not playing football in 2 years, I think he'll get back in the swing of things really quickly. So I'm excited for him. It's great having him back. We're a much better football team with him. All right, thanks.
Can I ask a question about VMI?
Sure, Tony.
Since they do have such an experienced team, they've got their top linebacker returning, they've got experience on offense. Are you able to gain more from watching some of their films from last year than what would usually be the case in week 1?
I think on offense, yes. I mean, they're an air raid system, and they play fast, and they play with tempo, and they've got their quarterback back, a lot of their O-line back. They've got one of their best receivers back. They've got their top 2 tailbacks. On defense, they hired a brand new defensive coordinator who was at Albany State a year ago. And so you're kind of studying both films, the one for personnel, the other for scheme. And so there's a lot more of a guessing game of what they're going to be on defense. And then on offense, again, you'd expect them with their quarterback back to not change too much. Yep. All right. Thank you, everyone.